All right. So today we will be talking about understanding a problem. First, I'll talk in general terms, and as we proceed in our lecture on software engineering, I'll try to mix the general concepts into software engineering domain so that you understand the general concept also and you can relate it to software engineering or software development context. So I understand that when we talk about software engineering, most of the times we talk about developing or creating softwares or data entity diagrams and how different entities can interact with each other to deliver a solution. However, if you have to really read into the research into corporate sector and IT sector, what often misses out and especially young developers are not very aware of it is the fact that most of the software solutions fail in the long term. And the reason why they fail in the long term or they are not sustainable is that uh, they are trying to solve a problem that first of all may not be valid, or the developers or even the entire team has failed to understand the actual problem. And that is why it's extremely crucial to be one with your problem, whatever problem you're solving, whether it's a technical problem, software problem, or even a problem in general. And and most of the times we are not encouraged also to understand the problem because there is this culture of just starting to develop a solution or starting to code. But however, if you don't know where you are going, there are higher chances that you may not end up reaching where you want to go. And that is why I strongly believe that having a thorough understanding of the problem that you're trying to solve is extremely crucial. In a series of lectures start on problems, we will be talking about understanding the problem, analyzing the problem, identifying whether a problem is right or wrong, and based on this, slowly we'll build up the foundation for software development as we proceed. So why is understanding a problem significant? By common sense, it appears that poor understanding of problem can lead to poor solutions that will not be sustainable in the long term. Moreover, since you are training yourself to be computer science developers and engineers and coders and people who use technology to solve real life problems, you must always remember that a computer will always do what you train it to do or tell it to do. It may not always validate or critically analyze what you're trying to do. So for example, even if you write a faulty piece of code, it may work in some manner, but it may not achieve what you're trying to do. So that is where human intelligence and human cognition comes into picture. That even so, computer is always a device. It's a servant, and you are the master. And this distinction is extremely important to remember. And that is why when we tell a computer to do something, we must be very sure of what we want it to do. And the knowledge of what we want it to do can only come up when we have thoroughly understood the problem. And as humans, we also suffer from some of the biases, some of the cognitive biases. One of them is that we have an illusion that we understand in depth what we are supposed to do. And that can actually backfire in the long term because when we really think from a very narrow point of view, and we are not open to looking at problem from the other point of view, we are setting up a place for creating certain mistakes as we proceed. So even in fact in innovation also I'd emphasize the importance of understanding a problem, and I'll just reiterate it that in software engineering also, because every research, every project, every endeavor that you start or you will ever start in your entire professional life or even in your personal life, it will start with a understanding of a problem. And as you can see, there is a very famous German scientist, Albert Einstein, had also said that if he was given 1 hour to save the planet, he'd spend 59 minutes defining the problem and 1 minute resolving it. Can anybody explain what he was trying to say when he mentioned this particular statement? What is your understanding of it when you come across it?
Strategical analysis of any problem statement is way better to invest time in than executing, because executing is the easy part, but coming up with a good strategy to solve the problem is the tricky part of it.
Yeah, I think you have summarized it quite well, dear. That, even Abraham Lincoln, one of the famous presidents of United States of America, he had said that he would spend around more time, sharpening his axe than cutting the tree, because he would spend time in understanding the problem. Because when you have deeply understood the problem, then you really know what is going on inside. And when you know what is going on inside, it becomes easier to develop the solutions and reflect over the solutions as well. And that is why understanding of a problem is important. Now, I'm aware that I have given you 3 problems for your group-based assessments. And these problems are just on a general level. Every group, on each group, may have a different understanding of what I'm trying to say in that. So even in those particular problems, try to really understand what is the problem. My understanding of the problem that I have given may be different from your understanding of the problem. And that is why before you start to even develop your solutions or even think about it, you really should discuss among your group members that, hey, what is really going inside here? What is exactly the problem? And then you proceed in solving the problem as you decompose the problem into smaller bits. So the key aspects of problem understanding is that identification of rigor in defining the problems you are solving. You should be very explicit and have a very tight understanding of the problem you're solving, and you should be able to articulate it in very clear manner. So if I have understood some problem but I'm not able to explain it to someone else, like, be in verbal or written form, then that means that my own understanding of problem is not complete, and I need to go back and do my homework and then come back again. So that unless and until I am aware of the problem and I'm able to articulate the problem, there always remains a doubt that I have understood the problem. Now, what happens when we don't understand a problem is that, throughout the world, there are IT companies mushrooming up. There are software engineers getting graduated every single year. And they're working really hard to solve some of the problems in IT sector. But the thing is that, when the problem that you're solving is not meaningful, it's not relevant, the entire effort is wasted, your time is wasted, and even your thinking is also not put to a proper use. And that is why organizations often miss opportunities, because although they are trying to solve something but they don't know what they're trying to solve. So they are not asking the right questions. Asking the right questions is extremely important so that the right problems can be tackled. And to pursue innovation initiatives, we have to be really careful in how we understand the problem. And for problem understanding, we should be able to define it, explain it to each other. So for example, when you're working in your group to develop a solution for the problems, make sure that each and every member of your group understands the problem, and then discuss among each other your respective understanding of the problem. Maybe what you have understood is a bit different from your team member, or the way your team member has understood has another angle to that problem which you have not thought of. And that is why discussing among each other, brainstorming over the problem, is extremely important to understand at a deeper level what is happening inside of the problem. So let me state it again, that even though I have specified the problems on the paper, they are just my view of looking at it. Each group will read them and develop a certain different perspective, and which is absolutely fine. So there's this company, Scientific firm. What it does is that it helps corporations identify and solve the problems that they are facing. But the way it solves these problems is using challenge-driven innovations. So what it does is, you can actually go to their website also and you will find lots of problems given on their websites, and they are trying to solve. So what the concept behind this firm is that all the clients can define and articulate their business and technical and all the issues that they are facing, and they put it on this firm, which is a community of more than 250,000 solvers. They're made up of scientists, engineers, and other experts, so who hail from all over the world. So these people provide them the solutions, and then based on that, they pick up the most feasible, relevant, and reasonable solution for the problem that they have put up. Now, the reason this firm has come into picture, you must think about it. The companies are giving the problems to this firm. It's not that the companies don't have resources to solve their problems, but even then, when they face a dead end, they have to take help from the external people. And Innocentric firm has really progressed over the period of time, as you can see from the figures, from 34% in 2006 to 57% in 2011. So that means the relevance of this firm is quite clear. The relevance of this firm is quite clear, and it also shows a natural trend which we are seeing towards increasing quality of questions being asked. And according to the research that this firm had done, and please note that this is a firm which is helping more than 100 corporations, government agencies, and foundations to improve the quality and efficiency of their innovation efforts and overall performance. Now, the innovation efforts and overall performance of any company really depends on the problem that they are solving, and whether the problem is a right question or it's just a mundane question that they are trying to solve. So most of the efforts these companies and even the firm spends is on understanding of the problem or the question. If we fail to have a rigor in which a problem is defined, then more often than not, we will not be able to arrive at a suitable solutions. And based on certain research from this firm, they have identified that most organizations over the world are not proficient in articulating their problems clearly and concisely. Now, at this point, let me take the liberty to give you an example. So when we are in school, when we are in colleges, we are solving very specific problems, very book type of problems, and problems which are not very dirty, because in real world, there are lots of complex things happening. And but so for example, so you really get a very lower level of exposure when you are in inside of university, but it also depends on the kind of projects you are doing. But when you enter the real world, you suddenly wake up to the complexity of the problems you are surrounded up with, and that is where your critical thinking abilities get challenged. And that is why having this base of understanding the problem will give you, in third year, will give you a lot more confidence later on in your professional life when you meet up the real world challenges within your teams, in the company that you're working, or you're collaborating with some other people in your company with some other people. And that is why you have to develop this muscle of critical thinking, and that can only happen when you really think about the problem that you're solving. And the ability to identify the problems is also crucial to missions and strategies and growth of an organizations. And sadly, people equate being able to code, being able to develop a software and presenting it such that it's working flawlessly. They equate this entire package with that the problem is solved. However, a software may be flawlessly working, but sometimes it may so happen that it may not be tackling or solving the certain key issues that were raised. So the technology and the relevance which comes from the deeper understanding of problem really have to go hand in hand, so that the technology can actually find its robust use in creating real life solutions. And that is why understanding of a problem is very important before you even sit on your computers to code and develop the software. So let us read this exchange, and then you tell me what is the main issue here. So let's take a moment. You can read this dialogue and tell me what do you think is the main problem here? So what do you think is the need of the company, really, with reason? So are you able to read this exchange?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so what do you make out of it? What is the problem here?
It needs new
It needs
old one. It needs something new for its purpose, and it's using the old one which is not made for the purpose that it needs to do.
so what is it something new?
Any new idea, infrastructure?
Ma'am, when the first time they made the machinery, they didn't think about the future. Now
Okay.
time has come, they need the new machinery which no one else makes, so they need the new lubricant.
So I think you're getting confused between new machinery and new lubricant. So the question really is whether the company needs a lubricant or whether they need a new machinery to produce its or manufacture its products.
It needs
Because current,
the new lubricant because new machine because they won't need new machine because no equipment fits to it. So they need the lubricant.
okay. Anyone else? So from this example, hopefully you can identify the classic case of a dilemma of understanding what really is the problem. And I understand this is a problem from a general point of view, but in our next lecture, I'll also try to direct your vision towards how similar problems also come up in software development domains. And when it comes to more than one person or even more than two people, there is always going to be difference in the perception of the way at looking problems. Even when you work on your group projects, you will see that your ideas, your perceptions may not always match. And matching is not the goal. The goal is to expand your minds to diverse thinkings that may not have happened otherwise. So, organizational teams often speed towards a solution because of a certain culture that is maintained that, we have to develop a solution, we have to develop a solution. But, and if we spend too much time defining the problem, it may come across in a bad light in front of our seniors or in front
Excuse
of.
me, ma'am.
Yes.
I haven't actually understood the previous slide. Can you explain it?
Okay. So in previous slide, so this is basically an exchange happening between a staffer and an engineer at a company, in which the staffer is asking. So the engineer has already decided that he or she will use a particular lubricant in a machine. But the staffer is asking, why do you need the lubricant? So the engineer is saying because they are expecting their machinery, which was quite old, to do something new, but it was not designed to do something that they wanted to do currently. And according to the engineer, it needs a particular lubricant to operate. But the staffer is questioning that when your machinery was not designed to do a particular thing, why don't you just replace the machinery? So according to the staffer, the issue is not the lubricant, it's the machinery, because the old machinery is not capable of doing what the demands of the company are. However, the engineer is saying that there is no one in their circle which can make that particular machinery that fits their needs. So there is a sort of dichotomy in the understanding of the problem. So the engineer says that changing the lubricant will solve the problem, whereas the staffer says that a new machinery needs to be introduced to solve the problem. Is that
Like both of the point of views are correct, but one is not looking at others.
so? The thing is that it's very difficult to say both the points are correct unless and until you know what exactly is the problem. So the problem is that the company wants to manufacture certain new items which this old machinery is not able to do. But the engineer is saying that if they replace or find a new lubricant to operate, the machinery will do something. Whereas the staffer is saying that it won't do. So that is why maybe the engineer's understanding of the problem is not complete.
Both people's understanding is not complete. We need a person who understands both in the middle. That's what we.
Okay. So if you were to be the middle person, what would be your recommendation?
Like we'll go and check what is the trouble, like what is the new product and what is the old machinery, and why is he need a lubricant, or what else the modifications if no one else are trained, what is the such kind of a modification which we can't do or there is no person able to do, like,
Right.
why is it so impossible, or
Okay.
make it into first principles and try.
Another thing to keep in mind is that finding a new lubricant will be much more, cheap as compared to finding a new machinery. So when it comes to solving problems in business, money aspect also becomes extremely important. And more often than not, even when company has a solution, it often hits a dead end because they want a certain amount of money for their solution, but the people are not willing to provide that amount of solution. And that is why then they have to go for a low cost solutions to solve the same problems. So using this example, I just wanted to show that the same thing is happening, but the perception of people on the problem is different. And because the way they are looking at problem is different, the solutions that they are proposing are also different. Is it any better now?
Yes.
Okay. Anyone else has any confusion? So please feel free to jump in between and ask any questions. All right. So having talked about the importance of knowing the problem, so that is about in the ideal world. In real world, unfortunately, this is seldom seen. So organizational teams often speed towards finding a solution, fearing that if they spend too much time in defining the problem, it might show them in not so good light in front of their managers or seniors or even in front of the teams. But look at things from both the short-term and the long-term perspective. In short-term, the solution might work. In the long term, it may lead to certain other problems or even other snaps in the software or applications. And that is why the approach in which any team is working towards speeding the creation of solution is more likely to waste time, money, and also reduce the odds of success than the one that strives at the outset to achieve an in-depth understanding of the problem and its importance to the firm. So investing time in understanding a problem is never really wasted. Of course, I don't say that you spend most of the time thinking only about the problem and very little time on how to execute the solution. But I wouldn't say it's a balance. I would on any day say that if your understanding of the problem is thorough and in-depth, you will be able to develop solutions in a much more faster manner than if your understanding of the problem is not as deep as it should be. So there is a framework and a systematic framework to define and articulate a problem. And most of the times this is also used. You can also use this in your projects as you go forward. So the first step is that you have to establish the need for a solution. So why do I need a solution? What is my basic need? What is the desired outcome? And who are the beneficiaries of that solution? So these questions become extremely important to ask when you are on your way to systematically define and articulate a problem. And note that these steps will lead to better clarity in the long term. So for example, for the machinery case, the basic need, so they were looking for a lubricant for a piece of machinery, which is different from seeking a new way to manufacture. Now here is a confusion, but the desired outcome is that they want to produce a particular product for their customers, which will provide them greater marketplace and greater market share. And who stands to benefit and why? So here again, I think there has been an exchange in the bubbles. I'll correct it. So these questions are extremely important to answer when you're trying to establish a need for solution, because when you understand who are the stakeholders in your problem and in your solution, you can better customize your solution to meet the needs of the people. So that is step one. Always establish the need for the solution. So when you try to establish the need for solution, there definitely comes up the evidence of the problem. So when you talk about the evidence of the problem, you have to really gather lots of data. So in software domains, it could be maybe your testing team has given you particular logs of an app or software which has snapped while the user was using it, and then you check on those logs, then you try to replicate the issue, and then you understand, okay, there is serious bug that needs to be fixed. So that is step one. In step two, you need to justify the need. So is the problem really worthy of being solved? What would happen if I don't solve this problem? What do I seek to gain, or what do I seek to lose if I solve or don't solve the problem? So that comes step two. So in the second step also, there are certain questions that you need to ask. That is your effort aligned with your strategy? Now every company has a strategy, and most of the times when they're trying to solve a problem, they're trying to meet the goals set up by their strategies. Most of them may have a financial strategy, or most of them have priorities and goals that focus more on creation of profit than anything else. And that is why when you're trying to create a solution, especially for a company in a larger scale, you must also be very cautious about that. Whatever you're trying to do in your workplace, is it really aligned to the organization that you are associated with? How will it help the organization in the long term? And what are the desired benefits for the company, and how will you measure them? Measuring of benefits is extremely crucial, because most of the times we are able to develop a solution or a software, but how do we evaluate it? How do we validate its importance? And unless and until and before creation of software, we develop this criteria that this is how I will measure the desired benefits. Otherwise, you will not be able to evaluate your solution or software. So even before, in the understanding of the problem phase, you must always be careful that once a solution is formed, how will you measure all these things? The third question that needs to be asked is, how will you ensure that a solution is implemented? Now, you have understood the problem, you have justified its need, and now you are at a stage where you need to ask, how will you ensure that a solution is implemented? So for that, you definitely need resources. You need time, people, and even domain experts who will help you to implement the solution. Sometimes what happens is, like it happens in national level or international level hackathons, that organizations give their problems and seek for solutions. So in that case, the solvers really becomes the open source community or the students or the computer science graduates who are giving them the solution. So then again, obviously you have to give them an incentive after they solve your problem. So that is step two. So step one is you have to establish the need for a solution. That why do I need a solution? Is this problem really relevant? The second is justify the need. The third is contextualize the problem. See, context is always very important when it comes to problem. So a problem of, say, for example, blackmailing will be very different in India as compared to United States of America. And because of the geographical regions, the solutions to that problem may differ. So even in software domains, what might happen is that you have created a software which is for English-speaking nations, where people are quite adept at handling all these mobiles and everything. But the problem that the app is solving is quite relevant to a particular community in rural South Africa, but there people are not very aware of all these things. So then you contextualize a problem and then try to solve it such that the beneficiaries are not handicapped because of that. So when you try to contextualize the problem, what approaches have you tried? So approaches means that what are the approaches to solutions you have tried. So it is always a good idea to start with understanding of the problem, but also have a look at what are the previous solutions that have been solving the same, or if not the same, a similar problem. Because what will happen is that you will avoid repeating the old mistakes, other disapproved solutions, and reaching a dead end. So by that, you will also save a lot of time, and you will have a greater understanding of what works and what does not work, and what are the tracks you should avoid in your journey to develop a solution. Then again, similar to this point is what have other people tried. So most of the times we are not really working on certain new problems. Most of the times we are working on some or other modification of an existing problem, and people may have tackled it earlier. And that is why, again, you should research other prior solutions. So even in research, if some of you would be taking up masters after your BTech, you will learn that when we start to develop a solution for a research problem, we do something called as the literature review. In literature review, we are trying to understand how that particular problem has been tackled previously by previous researchers and what have they found. Now, by this literature review, what we are really trying to understand is what are the gaps and limitations in the existing solutions to that problem. Because these are the things that really expand our understanding of what has not been done, what needs to be done, and how you can really help in bridging the gap between the perfect solution, or if not the perfect, a better solution, and the existing solution. So always, even when you're working on the 3 problem statements that I have given, try to see if there are people who have tried to solve these problems or similar problems and how they have approached the problem, because that will really give you a very wider perspective of what other people have done, and that will expand your understanding of the problem, but also how to approach the problem when you try to solve it. And needless to say, whenever you are trying to solve a problem, there always are constraints to implementing the solution. Sometimes in the company, there are logistic constraints, infrastructure constraints, or you don't have a particular person in a particular field who is expert in that domain to help you in creating the solution. So then you have to outsource your problem so that other who already has experience in that field can help you. And sometimes there are external constraints. So external constraints could be a violation of patents or intellectual property rights. So these are the things that you should really be careful about when you are trying to implement the solution. Sometimes plagiarism is also one of the things that comes up. So if you're trying to modify an existing solution, you must always acknowledge the existence of a prior solution. Any questions so far?
Even though we copy idea, we need to ask someone, we need to acknowledge someone that we took from there. That's it.
Yes. Yes. Because if you don't acknowledge, then basically indirectly what you are saying is that this is generated by me. I have created this, and which is actually an academic lie if you're a student, or it's a professional lie if you're in a professional circle. And that is why you are doing sort of disservice to someone who has already done that work. So transparency and proper conduct are extremely important whenever you are trying to develop a solution. And nobody creates a solution after scratch. We always stand on the shoulders of giants. So we are always taking information from everywhere and then try to create our own solution. So it's always a good practice to acknowledge.
Okay.
So the first thing was you have to establish the need for solution. You have to justify the need, contextualize a problem. So for example, another example I would give is that of the problem of road accidents. It's very different in India and it's very different in US. The reason behind road accidents in US may be very different from the reason behind the road accidents in India. So you always have to contextualize the problem. Now, talking of context, the problems that I have shared on the document for you to work on, they don't really mention any geographical region or any particular section of people. Now, if you were to really think over that problem, you would really go deeper into inside of it and see that, okay, if I were to contextualize this problem and really see that in which sector it is most relevant, or in which sector or group of people it is occurring in a different manner, then you would contextualize the problem. And when you contextualize the problem, needless to say, the solution also becomes contextualized. And specific problems always have specific solutions. A problem may be general, but depending on the context, the solution that works in one context may or may not work in the other context. And lastly, when you're trying to systematically define and articulate a problem, with all these steps, you come to the last step in which you are writing the problem statement. Now, when you write the problem statement, the question you should be asking is the problem a single problem or it's actually many problems? Because then again, if there are many problems, then you will need to decompose them. You will have to break them and then identify you still want to solve all the problems or you're specifically focusing on one particular problem. So if some of you would want to do MBA later on, there's something called as product manager. So even with Samsung, when we used to develop some new software or new feature and we would present it to a product manager, he or she would ask, but what is the problem that you're solving? And when they would ask this question, we would be scratching our heads and wondering, why can't you see it as clearly as we do? And then he would explain to us that a software engineer's understanding of a problem and a product manager's understanding of a problem are not really different, but they are same at a particular point, but both engineers and product managers may not be at that same point initially. And that is why you really have to spend time thinking on, is it a set of problems or it's a specific problem? Even in set of problems, what is a particular problem that you're solving? And what are the requirements that your solution should meet? Otherwise, how will you measure whether the solution has been, useful or not? Which problem solvers should be engaged? As I mentioned earlier, when you have identified the problem, now you are in a team. So in your team, you have identified that particular person is good in particular skill set. Other person is able to have a very good skill set in data flow diagrams or object-oriented analysis. So you divide the responsibility in such a way that you can use the resources in your team really properly. And then ask from them what they need to submit for the solution. And then lastly, how will solutions be evaluated and success measured? So most of the times we think that we have developed a solution and it's a success. But constructive feedback and testing of the software is also very critical to measure the success of the software. And that is why before you begin to create a software, you should have a clear understanding of the problem you're solving. And then imagine that your problem is solved by a software. So if it was solved, how would you evaluate whether the solution or the software that you have made is really successful? Now, one way to do it would be that you have use case scenarios. So if a particular condition is this, then my software should give me this. So this way, you need to really think of how will, in long term, you evaluate the success of your software. Is it clear till here?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I will be using a particular example if we have time. So, okay, I will be using a particular example to explain to you these steps. But I'm not sure if we have a time, but I'll try to go through it. So let's take a case study, and it's a case study from general life, but it tries to send you the message of what we have tried to learn theoretically. So there's a company, Enterprise Works Vita, often called as EWV. So it took an initiative to expand access to clean drinking water in a particular region. And At core, its mission is to foster economic growth and raise the standard of living of people in developing countries by expanding access to technologies. So its goal was to expand access to clean drinking water. Overall, throughout the world, there are many regions which do not have clean drinking water. So try to see this example from a general point of view, and then we later on, as we move forward in the course, also try to have an analogy of this kind of problem in the software engineering domain. So the first step to establishing the problem is you have to establish the need for the solution. So basic need is that they have identified that access to clean water, drinking water is very limited. So there are around 1.1 billion people in the world who lack it. Now notice that the moment you put a number to a problem, the credibility of the problem increases because it's an evidence. Okay, so always remember this aspect. The desired outcome is, so at first it might look that the desired outcome is access to water. But what if the water is actually accessible, but it's only 5 kilometers away or 10 kilometers away? Then the solution is not only access to water, but convenient access to water. And the company identified it. So what they thought was that they'll provide water for daily family needs without requiring enormous expenditures of time and energy. So when you're trying to develop a solution for customers or your users, you always have to take into account that they are able to use it with less hassle. They don't have to struggle in using your software, your app. You provide an experience which is seamlessly easy for them, and they actually enjoy engaging with your solution. Who stands to benefit? The individuals and family in the region. Now, coming to justifying the need, is the effort aligned with the strategy of the company? So the company identified early on that simply improving access to clean water is not enough. They wanted, whatever they were trying to do for a particular region, they wanted to get something back. And what they wanted to get something back was the economic development of that region. And somehow they could also earn revenue by providing a solution to that place, because that was their basic philosophy. So, and then again, when you come to justifying the need, you need to ask desired benefits and how to measure them. So this company is recognized as a leader in helping world's poor by transferring technology through private sector. So the benefit is measured by impact at the family level, the economic level, and indirectly also on the education of the children, because right now in the region, if people don't have water, don't have access to water, they might be spending most of their time fetching water, because water is crucial for living. But if the problem is already solved, then they can devote their time into creating something better, for example, receiving education, and this is also how they can measure the benefits. How will they ensure that the solution is implemented? So what they thought was, and this is a real life case study, this actually happened. So they initiated conversations on resources for solutions people required for initial research and testing of possible solution. So when you think of how to ensure solution is implemented, you really have to rope in people you think could be helpful for your solution creation. Now, I know this is very ironical in this current context, because you have been asking for creating groups on your own, and I've been quite adamant on roll number wise. But this is something that we all need to think through when we are thinking about implementation of the solution. Thirdly, you have to contextualize the problem. So what approaches have been previously tried when we talk about accessing clean water? So when they read previous solutions, they found out that digging wells near homes did not work. So they knew that this solution has to be out because this has already been tried. It was not found to be benefiting to people. Why? Because only those households near the water sources were able to get, the others were not able to get it. So they focused on rainwater harvesting because rain practically falls everywhere. Please note that they did not arrive at rainwater harvesting solution at the first step. They really had to study what was already tried, what worked, and what did not work. They tended to ignore what did not work and focused on what could be built upon the alternative solution. And this is something you should also be careful about. What others had tried, they went through previous research papers on rainwater harvesting. So after focusing on rainwater harvesting, they did not stop there. They again continued to understand the depth of rainwater harvesting. And they found that having solid roof was half the problem solved. But the second thing was having an inexpensive storage container. And it was quite expensive for people who don't have access to it. So then they thought of developing a low-cost household rainwater storage device. From this activity, what I want you to see is that how step by step a solution is being created. You don't solve a problem, in the wink of an eye. You really move. So it's basically a process of research. You move very systematically from one step to another. And when you make that leap, you ask why, and then you again make another leap, and then you ask why again. So it's really a series of why questions that lead you to a solution. Talking about contextualization of the problem, there are different internal and external constraints. The external constraints faced by this company was that the government policies around rainwater harvesting. So they compared government policies of various nations, and ultimately they found that Minister of Environment in Uganda was actually quite supportive of their initiative, and that is why they started their solution from Uganda, and they created the first rainwater harvesting storage for poor people in Uganda, and then expanded from there. This is how contextualizing problem works. And then lastly, they were able to write the problem statement. So they were clear from the very beginning that the solution was a storage product. That was the main problem. The requirements was that they set up a price of $20, but according to the other experts in that region, they found that nobody would be willing to give that much of price because people didn't have that much of money, and the company was not willing to go for a subsidized price because it was against their strategy and philosophy. Now here they were found at a dead end, and because they were at a dead end, they wanted people who could solve this particular situation, and they began engaging with experts outside the field to solve the problem. And the solvers needed to submit a written explanation of the solution and the detailed drawings so that they could understand what is really happening. And ultimately, they would measure the success of the solution by their ability to meet the criteria of low cost, high storage capacity, low weight, and easy maintenance device. So this was something that they identified when they had a clear understanding of the problem statement. Ultimately, a German inventor was able to provide them the solution. So it was basically a plastic bag within a plastic bag with the tube as a storage. So from this case study, we can see that a solution is developed like a sweater is wove. So thread by thread in the steps, a solution for a software or a problem is developed. But they did not stop even after getting the solution from the German inventor. They took their solution to the people, the end users. They asked them to use it, and they took feedback from them. And then, based on the feedback, they improvised their solution again. And then after that, they had 14 months of field testing, and the product was rolled out commercially. So hopefully from this entire journey, I hope you understood that how this particular company started with a very abstract problem, access to clean drinking water. But when it actually went into the depths, they realized that the way to solve that particular problem is basically giving a particular storage device that could be used in rainwater harvesting. So I hope you can appreciate the process that was going on there, and you could apply it when you are trying to solve your problems. So what we learn is that critically analyzing and articulating problem can yield highly innovative solutions. And it's basically a process, but you need to deploy simple concepts and develop the skills and discipline to ask better questions. Asking better questions always delivers better results, and that is why we really need to practice how to ask better questions and understanding the problem. So this was for today's lecture. I hope I was able to provide you a practical entrance into how problem and how creation of solution for that problem is actually a journey, and which is taken in cross section of time and not just something which can be solved at a particular point of time. Do you have any questions?
No, ma'am, but most of the time when we try to brainstorm, it takes so much of time, and other people think that we are not productive. How to tackle this?
Yeah, so this is a very genuine problem, but if you can show that you are not just brainstorming, but you can actually show the output of that brainstorming, then it is easier to convince people that you are not just brainstorming in blank space. You are actually getting out something from that brainstorming which can be useful for the development of the solution. So obviously you have to give some output to the people. If you don't provide that output, it becomes difficult for people to trust.
Okay, ma'am.
Any other question? So going forward, we will talk about the same analogies in the software engineering domain and gradually build up our understanding on that. Now, I want to talk briefly on your contention on groups based or roll number wise. I'll just stop the recording.